Kale walked through the grand halls of the Galactic Mage Academy, his robes dragging behind him. The floors shone under the bright lights, but Kale barely noticed. His mind was full of worry. Another test had failed, and this time it was worse than before. Sparks had flown from his wand, not in the neat, controlled bursts his teachers expected, but like wild lightning hitting walls, books, and even one unlucky janitor. The other students whispered and laughed as he passed. "Watch out, here comes the human disaster," one said. Kale lowered his head. He wanted to disappear. He wasn't like the others. His spells never worked properly. He couldn't lift objects with magic, couldn't control fire, and teleportation made him dizzy. Everyone else seemed perfect. Everyone except Kale. He reached the small storage room where he spent most of his days cleaning and organizing magical tools. The headmaster had once told him, "Kale, you are unique. Maybe someday your way will show itself." Kale never understood what that meant. He only knew he was the Academy's biggest failure. While arranging dusty magical vials, Kale heard the excited voices of other students in the training hall. Today was the final test of advanced magic, a test that could earn students high rank and respect. Kale's hands trembled. He had been asked to watch from the sidelines. He wanted to try, but he knew it would only end badly. Last week, his attempt to summon a simple energy shield had blown up an entire practice room. Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed through the hall. A holographic screen appeared in the center of the room. Red letters flashed, "Galactic threat approaching, all mages alerted." Kale froze. He had heard of alien fleets invading other systems, but never had he imagined one coming so close to the Academy. In the main hall, the elite mages gathered. They were tall, strong, and perfect. They discussed strategy, their voices serious, full of confidence. Kale tried to listen, but he felt invisible. Even the generals ignored him. "Get Kale to organize the supplies," one said without looking at him. Kale nodded quietly, knowing that this was his place. Not fighting, not leading, but cleaning. He walked to the supply room, carrying heavy crates of magical reagents. As he moved them, he overheard students talking about him. "He'll never be ready," one whispered. "Even a basic spell fails with him." Kale sighed. He had accepted that long ago. But deep inside, a tiny spark of hope remained. What if, one day he could be more than this? Hours passed. Kale worked quietly, arranging potions, sharpening wands, and dusting the shelves. Outside, the Academy prepared for war. The alien fleet was massive, their ships dark and glowing with strange energy. Kale peered out of a window, feeling small. Half the galaxy could be destroyed, and here he was, simply moving boxes. A sudden noise startled him. One of the vials fell and cracked on the floor. A strange purple mist filled the room. Kale sneezed violently. He had always been sensitive to dust, and magical dust was worse. The mist swirled around him, and he coughed. He tried to wave it away, but it seemed to cling to him. His hands tingled, but nothing else happened. He shook his head. Just a sneeze, he thought. Nothing big. As the sun set, Kale finally sat down, exhausted. He looked at the stars through the window, shining over the Academy and beyond, reaching places he had never been. He imagined flying between them, casting spells that could change the galaxy. He knew it was impossible, but he smiled. A mage could dream, even a failed one. The headmaster entered quietly. He studied Kale for a moment. "You know, Kale," he said softly, "failure is only the first step. Many forget that. The path is not always straight, but sometimes, those who stumble into greatness." Kale blinked. He didn't understand fully, but the words made him feel something new. Maybe he wasn't worthless. Maybe there was a place for him in this vast galaxy. Kale returned to his work, cleaning vials and sweeping dust. His thoughts wandered to the future. He didn't know what would happen when the aliens arrived. He didn't know if he would ever cast a successful spell. But he knew one thing: he had to keep moving, keep trying, and keep believing. Even if everyone laughed, even if everyone doubted him, he would find a way to matter. And deep down, a quiet spark of magic stirred in him, though he didn't know it yet. The next morning, the Academy was in chaos. Alarm sirens blared, echoing through every hall and chamber. Students ran in every direction, mages practicing defensive spells and teachers shouting instructions. The alien fleet, a massive horde of dark ships with glowing red engines, had entered the galaxy's outer system. Reports said they were fast, brutal, and completely unstoppable. Kale carried another crate of potions to the main hall. His hands shook slightly. He had never seen anything like this. Outside, holographic screens showed the alien ships moving in formation, firing strange beams that disintegrated asteroids in seconds. The galaxy's best commanders were calling for immediate defense. Kale felt tiny, like a single pebble in a raging storm. Inside the main hall, the elite mages were already discussing strategy. Their spells glowed in brilliant colors, illuminating the faces of serious, determined students. Kale stepped to the side unnoticed as he had always been. He wanted to help, but what could a failed mage like him do? He could barely make a candle float, let alone protect a planet. A general approached the group. We need every mage ready. Even those who think themselves weak, everyone counts. The aliens are intelligent and ruthless. We cannot underestimate them. Kale gulped. Weak. That word hit him hard. But he nodded, keeping silent. Outside, the alien fleet advanced quickly. Each ship was enormous, with spikes and weapons no human technology could match. From the observation deck, Kale watched students practicing, casting fireballs, shields, and strange beams. He tried to memorize what they did, hoping that maybe someday he could learn it too. He wanted to help, but he had no idea how. The academy's headmaster entered the hall. This is not just a battle of power, he said. It is a test of courage. Even those who stumble can make a difference. Do not think small, do not think weak. Every action counts. Trust your instincts, even if magic does not always obey you. Kale nodded again. He didn't fully understand, but the words made him feel important just a little. Maybe even he could do something. Hours passed. The mages trained and the preparations continued. Kale was sent to organize magical supplies, crystals, potions, and scrolls. He stacked them carefully, trying not to break anything. Occasionally, sparks flew from broken vials, but he managed to keep most of it intact. During a short break, Kale sat on the floor, looking at the starry sky through a massive window. The alien ships looked like shadows moving across the galaxy. They seemed endless, unstoppable. Kale's stomach tightened. Could anyone stop them? Could the Academy survive? He felt fear, but he also felt something else, curiosity. He wanted to see what would happen, to understand how the world worked when everything was in danger. A fellow student, a tall mage named Leor, came by. You're still here? He said, smirking. I thought even failed mages would run scared. Kale ignored him, focusing on the crystals. Leor shook his head and walked away. Kale thought about answering, but words didn't come. Instead, he whispered to himself, I may fail at magic, but I won't fail at trying. Later, Kale's task shifted. He was asked to deliver magical artifacts to the Academy's war room. He carried a heavy chest filled with enchanted items, his arms straining. As he moved through the corridors, a group of students practiced combat spells nearby. A stray energy blast hit a wall, narrowly missing Kale. He stumbled, nearly dropping the chest, but caught it just in time. He laughed nervously. I'm alive, still alive, he said. In the war room, the commanders examined holographic maps of the galaxy. Lines of energy and star systems lit up as they planned their defense. Kale set the chest down carefully. A strange artifact inside glowed faintly, pulsing as if alive. Kale reached out to touch it but quickly pulled back. He didn't understand its power, and he didn't want another accident. The headmaster approached Kale quietly. Fear is natural, he said softly. But courage is what matters most. You do not have to be the strongest mage. You only have to act when the moment comes. Sometimes the smallest spark can start a great fire. Kale nodded. He felt small, but he also felt a strange warmth in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, he could matter. As night fell, the alien fleet drew closer. The stars outside the window glowed red from the ship's engines. The Academy prepared for the battle of its history. Kale returned to his storage room, exhausted and unsure of his place. He arranged the artifacts, cleaned the floors, and stared at the sky. He had no magic worth mentioning. He had no skill, no power. And yet, deep inside, a small spark of hope glimmered. Kale didn't know it yet, but the coming days would change everything. The galaxy's fate, the aliens' invasion, and his own life would be forever altered by events no one could imagine. A failed mage, overlooked and underestimated, was about to play a role no one expected. And in the quiet of the storage room, Kale sneezed once, his body twitching from dust and pollen. It seemed ordinary, meaningless. But sometimes ordinary moments are the ones that change history. Kale spent the next morning in the storage room, dusting shelves and organizing magical artifacts. The alarm had not stopped ringing since the alien fleet entered the galaxy. Students were running back and forth, and the hallways were full of glowing spells. Kale watched from a small corner, feeling useless, yet strangely curious. His task today was simple: move a set of experimental magical vials to the war room. The vials were old, dusty, and filled with strange powders that glimmered faintly. Kale carried the first crate carefully, balancing it on his shoulder. As he walked, he could hear the academy preparing for battle. Spells sparked in the hallways, students shouted instructions, and the sound of magical energy thrummed through the building like a heartbeat. Kale sighed. He had failed every test in the academy. His spells never worked properly and the other students laughed at him constantly. Today, however, he felt a little different. He didn't know why. Maybe it was the excitement in the air, or maybe it was the strange feeling in his chest, a warmth that made him want to do something right. He reached the back corridor where the crates were stored temporarily. As he stepped inside, he accidentally brushed against one of the vials. A purple mist rose instantly, filling the small room. Kale coughed violently and waved his hands, but the mist clung to him. It tickled his nose, and before he could stop it, he sneezed. The sneeze was loud, explosive, and strange. A bright flash of light burst from Kale's hands, hitting the walls and ceiling. The vials rattled, some cracked, and the air seemed to vibrate. Kale stumbled back, his eyes wide. What just happened?" he whispered. Outside the room, the sound of the sneeze echoed through the hallways. Students froze mid-spell, teachers stopped giving orders, and even the commanders paused to look at the source. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Kale's sneeze was not ordinary, it had released a strange magical energy, powerful and uncontrolled. He sneezed again, smaller this time, and the mist swirled around him. His arms tingled and a faint blue glow surrounded his body. He tried to move, but the magic seemed to follow him, wrapping around his hands and feet. Kale gasped. I didn't mean to do this," he said, stepping back from the glowing artifacts. Meanwhile, the alien fleet was approaching the outer defenses of the galaxy. Their ships fired strange energy beams, and the human fleets responded with shields and counterspells. But then, something unbelievable happened. From Kale's room, the magical energy surged outward. It traveled along the galaxy's magical network, reaching the alien ships. In an instant, a massive explosion erupted in space. Reports came in immediately, half of the alien fleet was destroyed. Entire squadrons vanished, ships disintegrating in seconds. Commanders and generals stared in shock. How could a single action cause such destruction? No one had any answer. Kale, still sneezing and covered in magical dust, was the only one nearby. He collapsed to the floor, trembling. I just sneezed," he whispered. He could barely believe it. His failure, his constant mistakes, had somehow unleashed a power no one understood. The headmaster arrived, eyes wide with astonishment. "Kale, you might be the most important mage in the galaxy right now," he said. Kale shook his head. "I'm just a failure. I didn't mean this," he stammered. The students gathered outside the storage room, staring through windows and doorways. Whispers spread quickly, the failed mage. Kale destroyed half the alien fleet, with a sneeze? Some laughed in disbelief, others were in awe. Kale's classmates, who had mocked him for years, suddenly looked at him differently. Kale's hands still glowed faintly, and every time he sneezed, small bursts of magic shot out accidentally. He tried to stop it, but the more he fought, the stronger the energy became. He realized he had no control yet, but the results were undeniable. He had just done what even the greatest mages could not. The headmaster placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. "This is only the beginning," he said. "You may not understand it now, but this power, it is tied to your spirit. Your courage, your willingness to try despite failure, that is what made this possible. Humans are stronger than we often believe. Sometimes even failure leads to greatness." Kale didn't know what to say. He was still trembling, still confused, but something inside him had changed. He wasn't just a failed mage anymore. Somehow, his sneeze had shifted the balance of the galaxy. Somehow, even he mattered. As the night fell, Kale sat quietly in the storage room, looking at the magical dust floating in the air. The stars outside glimmered, distant and vast. He had no idea how to control his power, and he had no plan for what to do next. But he knew one thing: the galaxy would never see him the same way again. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of space, the surviving alien fleet paused, sensing the strange energy that had destroyed half their forces. The galaxy had a new player now, a failed mage with an accidental, unimaginable power, and the story of Kale was just beginning. The next morning, the academy was buzzing like never before. News had spread across the galaxy. A single sneeze from Kale, the so-called failed mage, had destroyed half of the alien fleet. Students and teachers alike whispered in astonishment. Kale walked through the hallways carrying a small crate of supplies, feeling a mix of disbelief and nervousness. Everyone was staring at him. Some eyes were filled with admiration, some with fear, and a few with envy. "Is it true?" a young mage asked as he passed. You destroyed half the alien army, with a sneeze?" Kale shrugged. I didn't mean to," he muttered, lowering his head. The words felt strange coming from his own mouth. For years he had been laughed at, called useless, a failure. Now everyone was talking about him like he was a hero. The headmaster called him to the main hall. The room was filled with students, teachers, and military commanders. Holograms of the destroyed alien fleet floated above their heads. "Kale," the headmaster said, "what you did yesterday was incredible. You changed the course of the battle before it even began." Kale shuffled his feet. He still didn't feel incredible. He felt confused, overwhelmed, and slightly terrified. One of the commanders, a stern woman with bright blue energy in her eyes, stepped forward. "We need you to teach us, teach everyone. If this power can be controlled, it could save the entire galaxy." Kale blinked. He wasn't a teacher. He wasn't even a proper mage. How could he possibly teach anyone? Outside the academy, the surviving alien fleet had retreated to repair their ships. Kale had unknowingly shifted the balance of power. Humans, who had often been underestimated, were now seen as a force to respect. Stories spread across star systems. The failed human mage had done what even the strongest warriors could not. Kale heard the rumors as he walked to his storage room, and he couldn't help but smile faintly. For the first time he felt important. Yet Kale struggled with his newfound fame. Every sneeze seemed dangerous now. He had no control over his powers, and the energy within him felt unpredictable. Even lifting a small crate caused a faint glow in his hands. He feared what might happen if he sneezed again, accidentally harming someone or causing another massive explosion. The headmaster visited him that afternoon. "Kale," he said gently, "you do not need to understand everything at once. Power comes in many forms. Control will come with patience, practice, and courage. Humans have a special kind of spirit, adaptable, resilient, and surprising. You have proven that." Kale nodded slowly. He wanted to believe it. He wanted to trust that he could learn, that he could be more than a failure. Students began approaching him, some cautiously, some with curiosity. A young mage named Tira said, "Can you show me how to control magic like you did?" Kale hesitated. He couldn't control it yet. He sneezed once more and a small spark shot from his hands, startling them both. They both laughed nervously. I don't really know how," Kale admitted. "I think I just got lucky." But luck was no longer enough to describe what had happened. Kale realized that his perseverance, his constant effort despite repeated failure, had created a spark no one else had. His mistakes, his failures, and even his sneezes had combined into something extraordinary. Humans were often underestimated, but Kale was learning that underestimation could be turned into strength. The headmaster organized special training sessions for Kale. Unlike other students who practiced standard spells, Kale would learn to harness unpredictable energy, focus his power, and understand the strange connection between his magic and his human nature. It was unusual training, full of trial and error, but Kale approached it with determination. For the first time, failure didn't feel like the end, it felt like a step toward something bigger. Even the commanders came to watch his practice. They marveled at how a single human, once considered worthless, could change entire fleets of enemies with a simple accidental act. It was proof that humans were adaptable, unpredictable, and capable of greatness when underestimated. By nightfall, Kale returned to his small room, exhausted but proud. He looked out at the stars shimmering above the academy. He had no idea how to fully control his power yet, but he knew this. He was no longer just a failed mage. He had been given a chance to change the galaxy and he would not waste it. A soft breeze carried dust into the room. Kale sneezed again, tiny sparks flying from his hands. He laughed quietly. "Well, maybe I'm not done yet," he said. Outside, the galaxy was still in danger and Kale knew that the aliens would return. But now he had courage, respect, and a sense of purpose. The failed mage had become a symbol of hope, a human who could stand against impossible odds. And for the first time, Kale truly believed that humans, even the smallest and weakest among them, could shine brighter than anyone expected. Kale woke early the next morning, his hands tingling faintly with the residual energy from his earlier practice. The alien fleet had not been destroyed completely. Reports showed that the surviving ships were regrouping in a distant system, preparing for another attack. The galaxy was not safe yet, and Kale knew that the responsibility now rested at least in part on him. He walked through the academy, noticing the difference in how people looked at him. Students who had once ignored him bowed slightly as he passed. Teachers nodded with respect. Even the commanders greeted him with seriousness rather than skepticism. Kale still felt small, but he could feel the weight of expectation pressing on him. It was heavy, but it also made him feel alive. The headmaster called Kale to the observation deck, where holographic maps of the galaxy floated in midair. The remaining alien fleet glimmered in red, concentrated but smaller than before. "Kale," the headmaster said, "the aliens will return soon. We need every advantage we can get. Your magic, your power, could be the key." Kale swallowed nervously. He still had no control. A sneeze, a twitch, or even a wrong thought could trigger something unpredictable. A general stepped forward, her armor glowing faintly with magical energy. "We have studied the enemy's patterns. Their attack will be coordinated and precise. Kale, your action yesterday was extraordinary, but can you repeat it?" Kale shook his head. I don't know," he said honestly. "It was an accident. I didn't plan it. I don't even know how it happened." The headmaster smiled gently. Sometimes accidents reveal the true potential within. Humans often surprise others and even themselves. Courage, curiosity, and persistence. These are qualities that no alien army can predict or control. You have all of these, Kale. That is why you matter. Kale took a deep breath. He could feel the energy in him, swirling faintly, unpredictable and raw. He realized that this power was not just magic, it was tied to his spirit, to his human nature. Humans had a way of surviving, adapting, and finding solutions in impossible situations. Perhaps this was why his sneeze had caused such destruction. The commanders gathered around and a plan was formed. Kale would be placed near the main defensive array, a series of magical amplifiers designed to focus energy across the galaxy. If he could direct even a fraction of his unpredictable power through these amplifiers, the alien fleet could be weakened before they reached human space. Kale felt fear rising in his chest, but he also felt determination. As he prepared, a young student approached him nervously. "Kale, I just want to say, thank you," she said. "You saved us all. Even if you didn't mean to, you made a difference." Kale smiled awkwardly. I hope I can keep helping," he said. Her eyes widened and she nodded. "Humans, we always find a way," she whispered. When the alien ships entered the system, Kale was in position. The amplifiers hummed with energy, responding to his magical aura. He focused on controlling the flow, trying to steady his hands and calm his mind. The first few moments were terrifying. Sparks shot in all directions. A small sneeze escaped, sending a ripple of energy through the room. Outside, alien ships shuddered and some exploded, while others retreated momentarily, confused by the unexpected force. Kale's heart pounded. Each sneeze, each tremor of energy now had purpose. He realized that control didn't mean perfection. It meant courage and action, even when the outcome was uncertain. He moved instinctively, channeling bursts of magic at the fleet. Ships faltered, weapons misfired, and alien commanders struggled to understand the chaos. Finally, after hours of tense effort, the alien fleet retreated, scattering across the galaxy. The human defenses held, the planets were safe, and the Academy's mages celebrated their first real victory against a threat that had once seemed unbeatable. Kale, exhausted and glowing faintly from residual energy, sat down quietly. He had done what many thought impossible. The headmaster approached him again. "Kale, you have proven that humans, even when underestimated, can achieve greatness. You were once called a failure. Now you are the hope of the galaxy." Kale looked out at the stars, distant and countless. He realized the truth in those words. Humans had flaws, mistakes, and weaknesses, but they also had determination, courage, and unpredictability. And sometimes those qualities could change the course of history. That night, Kale returned to his small room. He looked at the magical dust in the air and chuckled softly. He sneezed again, tiny sparks flying harmlessly this time. "Maybe I'm just getting started," he said. Outside, the stars shimmered, and far in the distance, the alien fleet regrouped. The galaxy had seen what humans were capable of, and Kale had shown them that even a single, underestimated individual could make a difference. And so, the failed mage was no longer just a failure. He was a symbol, a reminder that courage, persistence, and a spark of unpredictability could light the darkest corners of the galaxy. The human spirit had proven itself once again, powerful, resilient, and impossible to predict. The story of Kale, the mage who sneezed and changed the fate of the galaxy, had only just begun.